Today I'm going to show you how to do a chain stitch. And this is a tough stitch because you can't go back and take one stitch out if you don't like it. You have to pretty much commit with what you're going to go with. Here I have one at the top, and I thought I'd start one down here. When you want to think of your starting points as you're doing this, just think of it as just how you would, where you would start if you were writing this in cursive with a pencil. So that's how you're going to pick your starting points and stopping points with the stitching. So we'll try and do this so you can see it. I've got 2 strands of thread. I may have to spend quite a bit of time making sure they don't get tangled. And the key to this is really being consistent in the stitch length that you take and the loop that you make. This is a lot like the lazy daisy, only you're chaining them together. So you make a nice little chain stitch. And some people will pull their chain stitches tighter than I do. I like to have a nice full chain. Make sure my thread gets looped over here behind the needle. Oops, excuse me. Try and show this so that you can see. And I'm going to be making a curve here, so sometimes I make it just ever so much smaller. I'm really taking care because, like I said earlier, like I had mentioned earlier, I can't pull a stitch out if I don't like the way I put it in. I have to be sure right where I start it. Oops. And I can loosen this a little bit, because my loop got pulled a little bit. I'm going to make sure I really like where that loop is. It's not my favorite, but I'm going to have to commit. It's like I told you, you can't undo this very easily at all. Anyway, I started to say I try and do a slightly smaller stitch around these curve areas. And I try and do, if I have a set of words or a word, I try and do the whole word in one setting, because you know how everybody has different things that happen every day. If you stop in the middle of the word, tomorrow when you come back to it, or a month when you come back to it, your stitch may look completely different. So it's best if you can finish this section completely before you move on. So you get the idea, I think. I'll come back and show you where I start and stop. Well, I'm almost to the end of this crossover for the H. And even though earlier I thought, oh gosh, this might not look so good when it's done, hey, it does. Looks pretty good. Now, if you really just can't get this stitch to come out right, there's nothing wrong with changing what stitch you use. A running stitch would look great here. Sometimes you got to do that in these kits. If you get one that just has something you just can't master, or you just can't get it to come out looking like you want it to look, there's nothing wrong with changing it up a little bit, changing a stitch and making it work for you. I do it all the time. So I'm going to just pull that through, and that will end that section. I'll come back up here, end here. This has a nice way to start here, just like you would if you were drawing in cursive. It's a little trickier when you get to areas like this. I started here on this A and worked around it, ended it nicely, and then I started another chain stitch here, and I went up here and ended it. Then I did the P around to the bottom of there, and then down. I started another one over here, ended it, started here, and went down there. Started back here, ended it basically, started here, ended it, went up here, and went that way. So you have to think about how you're going to handle that when you're working on these.